Scotland is world famous for its wide open landscapes, its beautiful green vistas and its treeless hills, the stumps of the old pine trees exposed in the peat hags, and the standing lonely skeletons, the snags of the trees that have died more recently.
Every photograph you've ever seen of the Scottish Highlands is a lie.
The forest that has gone, the trees that have vanished, the wildlife that has gone with it. And the stark reality is that we live in a devastated landscape in the Highlands.
Those bare, sweeping hills, not ancient, not wild, they're a 500-year-old ecological crime scene, an entire forest, erased so completely we forgot it existed. But in 1986, one man kicked off a 250-year protocol to force it all back from the bedrock up. 35 years in, the golden eagles just showed up. Go back 10,000 years. Ice Age is ending. Glaciers pulling back from the Scottish Highlands like a tide draining out. And behind them, something massive rolls in. Not people, forest. A canopy so vast, so dense, that when the Roman legions saw it from their warships, they named the whole territory after it, Caledonia. Roman writers described it as a single enormous forest, the Caledonia Silva. That wasn't legend. That was literally what they were staring at. An unbroken wall of ancient woodland covering everything in sight. And this wasn't just trees. Picture yourself inside it. Scots pines 30 meters overhead, some already 500 years old. Bark cracked and dark with resin. Below them, birch, rowan, juniper, aspen, hazel, oak, layered so thick the canopy ate the light. Below that, heather, blaeberry, mosses, lichens, and under your boots, a fungal network so dense that 1 teaspoon of that soil held more living organisms than there are humans on the planet. You'd smell the peat, the pine sap. You'd hear wolves, brown bears denned in the hollows. Lynx slipped between the trunks like shadows. Then, we killed it. Not all at once, in waves, each one more efficient than the last. First, the great clearances. Entire forests ripped out for farmland. Then, the timber industry showed up. Ancient pines hacked down for warships, charcoal, construction. Centuries of growth, gone in a single season. Then, the highlands got carved into deer-stalking estates. And deer-stalking needed open ground, treeless ground. So, the trees had to go. And finally, sheep. Millions of them. Brought in at industrial scale, animals that eat every seedling before it hits knee height, locking the land into a permanent biological monoculture. No new trees, no regeneration, no way back, just grass, heather, and silence where a living forest used to breathe. The Gaelic names are the cruelest part, glen names that still translate to the Aspen Glen, the Juniper Crag, the Boar's Run. Naming animals that vanished so completely, the words outlasted any living memory of the creatures themselves. Ghost names, ghost forest. By the 1990s, less than 1% of Scotland's land held native pinewood. 1%. The forest that gave Scotland its Roman name, reduced to a few isolated, dying fragments, scattered across a landscape that had been treeless so long. Most people standing in the middle of it had no clue they were looking at a wound. They thought the bare hills were natural, that Scotland had always looked like this. It hadn't. What they were photographing was a corpse. So, here's the question. An entire ecosystem, dead for 500 years. How do you bring it back? In 1986, a guy named Alan Watson Featherstone stood in front of 240 delegates at a conference in Findhorn and said something most of the room thought was flat out insane. He was going to restore the Caledonian forest, not a patch, not a nice little woodland trail for tourists. The whole thing, every species, every fungal relationship, every trophic layer from canopy down to dirt, rebuilt across the Scottish Highlands. He did the math. 10 human generations. 250 years. Nobody who started the work would live to see it done. Nobody in that room would. Their kids wouldn't. Their grandkids wouldn't. Most people heard a fantasy. Featherstone heard a deadline. Trees for Life got moving in 1989. Tree guards around Scott's pine seedlings in Glen Canich, trying to keep the deer from eating them alive. Volunteers started planting in 91. Some of the first new trees to grow in that forest in 200 years, put in by hand, one at a time. Muddy boots on wet peat, fingers numb from the highland cold, no nursery, no infrastructure. A start that didn't come close to matching the scale. But here's what Featherstone got that most people don't. You don't wait, you start. And right away, wall, deer, red deer, everywhere. 5 deer per square kilometer and the seedlings can make it. That's the biological tipping point. Below 5, nature heals itself. But across the highlands, the count wasn't 5, 20, 4 times over. At that density, every seedling gets chewed to nothing before it reaches your knee. Every season, every year, for decades. The land couldn't heal because the wound kept getting torn open. In 2008, Trees for Life bought the 4,100-hectare Dundregan estate in Glenmoriston, a former deer stalking operation. When the charity walked in, the smell of damp heather and old gun oil, the place existed for one purpose: killing deer. Small patch of ancient woodland, massive stretches of bare ground, rows of commercial conifers so uniform they looked like a factory floor. Staff, one person, so they built walls, kilometers of massive deer-proof fencing, engineered to lock the deer out so the soil could breathe for the first time in centuries. Then came the forensic layer, permanent vegetation plots, survival counts every spring, wildlife transects, sediment core sampling, soil chemistry, tracked season by season, year by year. They weren't just asking if trees could grow, they were asking if the ecosystem was reconstituting itself. And that's the real question. Not the trees. The ground underneath. Was it still alive enough to hold anything? Answer came in slow. Centimeters, not meters. Individual seedlings, not canopy. But the fences worked. Browsing pressure dropped. And the land. It started remembering. Dundregan now holds over 1,000 hectares of native forest. More than 4,000 species. 4,000. When Trees for Life bought the estate, biological monoculture. 1 species, deer. Now, 4,000. That's not gardening. That's ecosystem reconstitution in real time, faster than anyone predicted. But none of that explains what was happening underground. Here's what the models missed. Plant 2 million trees. Fence out every deer in the highlands. Doesn't matter. If the soil's dead, nothing takes. And the soil, dead. The real engine of a forest isn't up top, it's under your feet. Mycorrhizal fungi. These things have been running alongside tree roots for 400 million years. They build a network underground that wires every tree to nutrients, to water, to each other. Cut a tree off that network, starves. Destroy the network, nothing grows. Period. And across the highlands, centuries of overgrazing hadn't just killed the trees. It had ripped the fungal web underneath to pieces. The soil wasn't empty. It was disconnected. Like a city where someone tore up every road. So Trees for Life tried something nobody'd pulled off at this scale. They built a mycorrhizal inoculation program from scratch. Pulled 59 species of ancient fungi from old-growth roots still clinging to life at Dundregan's surviving pines, trees that had been standing since before the Protestant Reformation. Then injected those fungi into the root systems of new seedlings, hand-delivering a 400-million-year-old network, 1 tree at a time. But here's what nobody knew yet. Would it actually work? Tree ring data, dendrochronological analysis going back centuries, told them what the network used to look like. Soil chemistry told them what was gone. The inoculation was the gamble. Science said these networks should take decades to rebuild in wrecked soil. Decades. At Dundregan, something was happening faster. Old-growth remnants plus active inoculation plus deer-fenced zones. The combination seemed to be speeding things up. by how much? Open question. Science is still chasing it. But above ground, receipts. Soil organic carbon climbing, water retention ticking up, pine martens back, red squirrels, black grouse, rare lichens. Invertebrates never recorded at the site. Species people thought were locally extinct, just showing up, walking back in like they'd been waiting. Then came the moment. In 2015, the Trees for Life team and conservationist Roy Dennis, they rappelled 15 to 18 meters down a cliff face at Dundregan. Cold wind cutting sideways, wet rock under their hands, lichen packed under their fingernails. They were building an artificial golden eagle nest, an eyrie, right where Dennis found the crumbling remains of an old one. 50 to 60 years unused. A tree had grown up in front of it. Dennis cut it out, rebuilt the platform. Then, they waited. Golden eagles don't just need a nest, they need territory, conditions, and, above everything else, prey, which means they need a working ecosystem underneath them. Eagles had been circling Dundregan for years, watching, but nesting? No. Year after year, estate manager Doug Gilbert hiked up that cliff and checked. Year after year, nothing. 2016, nothing. 2017, nothing. 2018, nothing. 2019, nothing. Summer of 2020. 5 years after they built the eyrie, 35 years into a 250-year plan. Gilbert climbed up one more time. Golden eagle pair. One chick. First time in 40 years. They didn't come back for the nest. They came back because the world beneath it could finally feed them. Black grouse, key prey species, had bounced back with the woodland. The trophic cascade hit the top of the chain. Trees made insects possible. Insects made grouse possible. Grouse made eagles possible. 35 years in, apex predators, home early. Western edge of the restoration zone. Glen Loyne, bare hillside, 57 Scots pines. That's it. That's what's left of a forest that used to fill the whole glen. Ordnance Survey maps from 1874 still show thick woodland here.
So today we're out in Glen Loyne, which is home to one of Scotland's ancient Caledonian pinewood sites.
By the 90s, 85 pines. Today, 57. The oldest one, dated ring by ring, dendrochronological analysis, St. Andrew's Lab, goes back to at least 1458, at least 565 years old, and believed to be even older. That tree was ancient before Columbus crossed the Atlantic. It stood through the Jacobite rebellions, the clearances, 2 world wars. Still there. On a hillside, everything else walked away from decades ago. And for centuries, that tree dropped seeds. And for centuries, deer ate every last one before it could root. Generational legacy erased in the jaw of a herbivore, over and over and over. Late 2023. Trees for Life airlifted 1.5 kilometers of deer-proof fencing into Glen Loyne by helicopter, wrapped it around those 57 survivors. For the first time in anyone's memory, seedlings from that 565-year-old pine can hit the dirt and live. Its offspring might be growing in 2100, their offspring in 2200. And somewhere around the middle of the 23rd century, the forest Featherstone dreamed up in '86 might finally look something like its original self.
To the final stages, and we know that we'll be able to protect those pine woods going forward for the next generation.
The plan ends in 2236, 215 years out. Everyone who planted these trees will be long dead before they're fully grown. Everyone who fenced Glen Loyne will be dust before that forest stands. That was the deal from day one. Not a sacrifice, just math. The work takes longer than a human life. So you do your part and you hand it off. Eagle came back, soil's rebuilding, and the oldest Scots pine in Scotland is dropping seeds that'll outlive every single person alive right now. So, straight answer, I want one. Is humanity just a wrecking ball on this planet? Or does a 250-year plan prove we're the only species on Earth capable of conscious generational repair? Type destroy or repair in the comments. I'm reading every single one. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Hidden Latitude for upcoming topics.